I 30M found out my girlfriend, 25F, was a sugar baby during college. Now I'm trying to decide if our relationship is over. We were at her friend's apartment in her college town. This wasn't some wild party, just a group of her old friends catching up. I tagged along because I didn't want to be the guy who's too clingy or controlling. But let me tell you, I wish I hadn't gone. Her old friend comes in with another girl, and Jane freezes like someone just yanked the power cord out of her. At first, I thought it was nothing. The other girl looked so excited, going, "Oh my God, Jane," and rushing to hug her. Jane smiled, but not in a way that felt right. Then that girl starts teasing Jane. "Wow, look at you, all conservative now. Where's the real Jane?" Jane gives her a glare that could have set the room on fire. Everyone laughs awkwardly, and I'm just sitting there like, what the hell is going on? Later, back at the hotel, I asked her about it. She kept brushing me off, saying it was nothing, but I wouldn't drop it. I kept asking until she finally cracked. She said the girl was someone she knew in college and that they used to work together. I asked what that meant, and she said she'd been a sugar baby. I didn't understand at first. She had to spell it out for me. She met older men, they gave her money, and in return, well, you know, I couldn't say anything. I just sat there. She started crying and kept saying she was ashamed and didn't want me to find out because she thought I'd leave her. She said she had no choice back then, that she was broke and couldn't pay for school. I didn't know what to do, so I left. I told her I needed space and went to crash on a friend's couch. That's where I've been for the past few days. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every single detail of what she told me kept bouncing around in my head. I tried to make sense of it, but nothing did. I spent the next day at my friend's place, lying on his couch while he worked in the other room. He kept asking if I was okay, but I just mumbled something about relationship problems and left it at that. What was I supposed to say? That the girl I've been with for 2 years used to meet up with rich old guys for money? Jane kept texting me. Every few hours, another message popped up. "Please talk to me. I miss you. We can fix this." I didn't reply. By the second night, I started thinking about everything differently. I realized I didn't even know how long she did this for. Was it one guy? Multiple? I couldn't stop picturing things I didn't want to imagine. The next morning, I finally texted her back. I said, "We need to talk. I'll come by later." When I got to the apartment, she was sitting at the kitchen table. She looked like she hadn't moved all day. "You came," she said. "I'm not here to patch things up," I said. "I need answers." She nodded. "Was it one guy or more?" I asked. "One," she said quickly. "Just one." "For how long?" She hesitated. "About 2 years." That hit me like a truck. 2 years? I was expecting her to say a few months maybe. "So what, the whole time you were in college?" "Not the whole time. I started after my first year. I was broke and my part-time job wasn't enough." I didn't even know what to say. 2 years, I repeated. "How much money are we talking?" "I don't know exactly," she said, looking down. "Roughly. Maybe 40,000? I just stared at her. 40 fucking thousand? "It wasn't like I spent it on fun stuff," she said. "It paid for tuition, rent, groceries. I didn't have anyone helping me." "And you didn't think to tell me this at any point?" I asked. "Not when we started dating? Not when we moved in together?" "I was scared," she said. "I thought you'd see me differently." "Well, you were right," I said. "I do see you differently now." That made her start crying again. She kept saying how much she loved me, how she didn't want this to ruin us. But I couldn't shake the image of her sitting across from some rich old guy, laughing at his jokes, pretending she was into him, all for cash. "You should have told me," I said. "If you told me at the start, maybe I could have handled it, but now?" "I was going to," she said. "I swear I was. I just kept putting it off because I didn't want to lose you. And then it felt like it was too late." "You were never going to tell me," I said. "Don't lie to yourself." She didn't argue. I ended up leaving again. I told her I needed more time, but honestly, I didn't know if I'd ever be able to come back from this. After staying at my parents' house for a couple of days, I decided I couldn't just sit around anymore. I went back to the apartment to grab more of my stuff. I didn't tell Jane I was coming, so when I unlocked the door, she was standing in the kitchen eating toast like everything was normal. "Jesus," she said when she saw me, "you scared me." "I'm just here for some things," I said, brushing past her. She followed me into the bedroom. "We need to talk." "We already talked," I said, throwing some clothes into a bag. "I don't know what else there is to say." "You can't just shut me out like this," she said. "I deserve a chance to explain." "Explain what?" I said, spinning around to face her. "You already told me everything, didn't you? Or is there more?" "There's nothing else," she said. "I just want you to understand why." "I don't care why," I snapped. "You think I'm sitting here wondering what your reasons were? You slept with some rich guy for years, and now I'm supposed to what? Pretend it doesn't matter?" She flinched but didn't back down. "It wasn't like that," she said. "You're making it sound so much worse than it was." "Oh, really? So what was it, Jane? A fucking hobby?" "It wasn't about sex," she yelled. "It was about survival. I didn't have anyone to help me, and I didn't know what else to do." "That's not the point," I shouted back. "The point is, you kept it from me. You let me think you were someone else this whole time. You lied to me, Jane. You lied every single day we were together. Her face twisted. I didn't lie, she said. I just didn't tell you. Same fucking thing, I said, turning back to my bag. She grabbed my arm. Please don't leave like this. Just talk to me. I yanked my arm away. Talk about what? You've said it all, and honestly, I don't even know if I believe you. What does that mean? She asked, her voice rising. How do I know there was just one guy? I said. How do I know you stopped when you said you did? For all I know, you could have been doing this when we first started dating. She looked stunned. You really think that little of me? I don't know what to think anymore, I said. She started crying, saying she couldn't believe I would accuse her of that, but I didn't want to hear it. I'm done talking about this, I said, zipping up my bag. I'll come back for the rest later. As I walked out, she yelled after me, You're being a coward! You don't want to face the truth because you know you're being unfair! I slammed the door without looking back. That night, I went to a bar with one of my old high school friends. I needed to get out of my head for a while. I didn't tell him everything, just that Jane had kept a big secret from me. You ever think maybe you're overthinking it? He asked after his second beer. People do stupid shit when they're young. Doesn't mean they're bad people. It's not just that, I said. It's the lying. How do I trust her after this? He shrugged. I don't know, man, but if you love her, you've got to figure it out. Otherwise, what's the point? I didn't say anything after that. I just stared at my drink, thinking about what he said. When I got back to my parents' house, my mom was waiting in the kitchen. Did you talk to her? She asked. Yeah, I said, grabbing a glass of water. And nothing. It's a mess, I said. She didn't press me for details, but she did say one thing before I went to bed. You don't throw away 2 years over a mistake. Think about that before you make any decisions you can't take back. I didn't respond. I didn't know what to say. After a few more days at my parents' house, I felt like I was stuck in limbo. Jane wasn't texting me as much anymore, but every message she sent was some variation of, please let's talk, or I love you, don't give up on us. I ignored most of them. I didn't know how to respond. One afternoon, my dad caught me pacing in the backyard. You've got to look like your brain's gonna explode, he said. I just keep going back and forth, I said. So go talk to her and stop torturing yourself, he said. It's not that simple, I said. Even if I forgive her, what's that gonna change? I'll still know. I'll always know. He nodded, then said, You'll never stop knowing, but you have to decide if you can live with it or if you can't. Otherwise, you're wasting your time and hers. That night, I sat down with a notepad and started listing out everything that had been bothering me. Her lying. The fact that she let this go on for 2 years. That she didn't tell me earlier, when it might have been easier to handle. I must have rewritten that list 5 times before giving up and tossing it in the trash. The next morning, I texted her, I'll come by tonight, we'll talk. When I got to the apartment, she was already waiting by the door. She looked like she'd been sitting there for hours. She didn't say anything at first, just stepped aside to let me in. We sat at opposite ends of the couch. I didn't even take my jacket off. So, she said. So, I repeated. I just want to know where your head is, she said. I shrugged. All over the place. She nodded. Do you even want to try to work this out? I don't know, I said honestly. She looked down at her hands, then said, I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I don't know how many times I can say that before it starts to sound meaningless, but I mean it. I really do. I believe you, I said. But it's not just about being sorry. It's about the fact that you lied to me for 2 years. 2 years, Jane. That's a long time to pretend everything's fine when it's not. I wasn't pretending, she said quickly. I wasn't lying either. I was just keeping secrets, I cut in. Big ones. She sat back like she didn't know what else to say. What do you want me to do? I asked after a minute. Just forget this ever happened? Act like it's no big deal? No, she said. I don't expect you to forget. I just want you to understand why it happened. Why I did what I did. And I want a chance to prove that it doesn't define me. And what if I can't get over it? I asked. She didn't answer right away. Then she said, if you really think you can't, then I guess this is it. But I hope you'll at least try, because I don't want to lose you over something that's in the past. I didn't know what to say to that. We sat there in silence for what felt like forever. Finally, I stood up and said, I'll let you know what I decide. She didn't stop me as I walked out. Back at my parents' house, my mom cornered me in the kitchen. So, she asked. I don't know, I said. Well, you'd better figure it out soon, she said. It's not fair to drag this out. She was right. Everyone was right. But that didn't make it any easier. I spent the next 2 days doing everything I could to avoid thinking about it. I helped my dad clean out the garage. I went on long walks around the neighborhood. But no matter what I did, I couldn't shake the questions in my head. Could I forgive her? Could I trust her again? Did I even want to? By the 3rd day, I realized there was no easy answer. I was going to have to make a choice, even if it didn't feel like the right one. A week later, Jane and I met up one last time. She begged me not to leave. She said she'd do anything to make it right. I can't do this, I said. I thought I knew who you were, but I don't. And I don't think I ever will. She broke down, but I didn't stay to comfort her. I just left. It's been a month now. I still think about her every day, but I know I made the right choice. Commenter 1. She did what she had to do to survive. You're judging her for something she did out of desperation. OP's reply. I get that, but it's not just what she did. It's that she didn't tell me. I could have handled it if she'd been honest from the start. Commenter 2. Dude, you're overreacting. Everyone has a past. OP's reply. It's not just a past, it's a double life she hid from me for 2 years. That's not something you just get over. Commenter 3. You really think you're so perfect? Maybe you should look at your own flaws before judging hers. OP's reply. I never claimed to be perfect, but this isn't some minor flaw. It's a huge thing she hid from me. It's not the same. Commenter 4. Good for you for leaving. You deserve someone who's honest. OP's reply. Thanks. It wasn't easy, but I couldn't stay with someone who lied to me like that. Commenter 5. You'll regret this. She loved you and was trying to protect you from judging her. OP's reply. Maybe I will, but I couldn't stay knowing what I know now. I'd never trust her again. Update. I wanted to give an update, mostly because I've been going over everything again and again in my head, and maybe writing it out will help me sort through it all. After reading the comments on my last post, I realized that most people thought I was being harsh or unfair. I get why it came across that way, but this wasn't about being judgmental for the sake of it. This was about figuring out what I could or couldn't live with. A lot of people told me I was wrong for not understanding her situation, and I really did try to look at it from every angle. But no matter how much I tried to reason through it, I kept coming back to the same conclusion. This relationship wasn't going to work. I spent a few more days staying with my friend. He was trying to cheer me up, cracking jokes and suggesting we go out, but I wasn't in the mood. One night, while we were eating takeout in his kitchen, he finally asked, "So what's the plan? Are you going to keep dragging this out, or are you going to end it?" "I don't know," I said. "It's not that simple." "It is that simple," he said. "Either you forgive her and move on, or you break up. But sitting here in limbo isn't doing anyone any favors." That stuck with me. He was right. I wasn't being fair to Jane by dragging this out. If I knew deep down that I couldn't move past it, then I had to stop pretending there was some magical solution. The next day, I went back to the apartment. I texted her first to let her know I was coming, and when I got there, she was already sitting on the couch waiting. She looked tired, like she hadn't slept in days. I sat down across from her and said, "We need to talk." She nodded. I didn't sugarcoat it. I told her that I'd thought a lot about everything, and as much as I cared about her, I didn't think I could get past this. "I don't want to keep pretending I'm okay when I'm not," I said. "It's not fair to either of us." She didn't argue. She didn't try to convince me to stay. She just nodded again and said, "I understand." I told her that she was a great person and that I didn't blame her for her choices, but that I didn't think we were compatible. "We're just too different," I said, "and I don't think we want the same things." That's when she started crying. She didn't yell or get angry, just quietly cried and said, "I wish you'd told me sooner." "I wish I'd known sooner," I said. She asked if we could at least stay friends, but I told her that wouldn't be a good idea, at least not for a while. "I need some time to figure things out," I said. She nodded and wiped her face, then asked, "Where are you staying?" "With a friend," I said. "I'll come back to get the rest of my stuff later." We sat there for a few more minutes, not saying anything. Then I got up and left. That was about a week ago. I'm still staying with my friend, and I've been trying to keep myself busy. Work, errands, anything to keep my mind off it. But it still pops up, especially at night when I'm trying to fall asleep. I keep replaying everything in my head. I know some people think I overreacted, but I don't regret my decision. It's not about being judgmental or close-minded. It's about knowing what I can handle in a relationship. The truth is, Jane and I had different values. That's not her fault, and it's not mine, but it's a big deal when you're thinking about a future together. She made choices that I couldn't reconcile with, and that's okay. Everyone has their own line, and this was mine. I hope she finds someone who can accept her past, someone who can love her without hesitation. But that person isn't me, and I think that's okay too. To those who said I should have tried harder to understand her, I get where you're coming from. But this isn't about judging her as a person. This is about what I can live with, and I realized I couldn't live with this. That's not something I'm proud of, but it's the truth. For now, I'm focusing on moving forward. I'll get through it eventually. Thanks for watching. If you liked the story, hit subscribe. See you in the next one.